Hello and welcome back to the Blast from Our Past podcast, where we talk about film and TV from our nostalgic younger days, and also recast either those films, those TV shows, or cast whatever the fuck we want, like today. Today we have a very special episode, so let's get started. I'm Adam.
I'm John.
And I'm Joseph.
And I'm Jonathan.
That's right, we have not one, but two special guests today. John and Joseph are the creators of the Dynamic Duel podcast. How about you guys tell us a little about yourself?
Our podcast is...
It's basically us arguing
Yeah.
over who is better between Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
The whole podcast is just, it's basically sibling rivalry, where John is the DC fan and I am the Marvel fan, and we basically call each other stupid for 2 hours every other week.
Yeah, we're twin brothers, and somehow we kind of developed an affinity for opposing comic book universes. So yeah, it's just us bickering. That's all it really is.
How did that happen? Like, how did you guys grow into separate paths? Because my brother John and I are definitely Marvel guys. Like, we grew up hardcore into Marvel.
I actually think it's easier, like, when you have, siblings who are, have a few years difference in age. The younger sibling always, likes whatever the older sibling likes. But when you're twins and you're growing together and you're trying to find differences between each other, I started off as a Marvel fan because that's really what we were exposed to growing up. But once I got more involved and learned more about DC, I liked the stories more. Marvel doesn't really have anything like The Dark Knight Returns or Watchmen or anything like that. I think with DC's characters, they're less relatable than Marvel's, but they're more aspirational. And because of that, since they're archetypes, you could tell better stories. And I just like that. I just like stories.
Basically, he went to the dark side.
Yeah. Yeah, I can agree that Marvel characters are vastly superior, but
yeah.
I've read quite a bit of Batman graphics, and those are some of the best stories that I've ever read in all of comics.
Yeah, I like them.
They're okay. If you like that sort of thing, it's fine.
So speaking of Marvel and DC, today our very special episode is exactly that. It's a Marvel versus DC. And the two shows that we're going to talk about are two of the best animated comic TV shows, particularly from all of our years growing up. And really, I think for me at least, put a big impact on me reading comics down the line because these shows were so good and so impactful watching them as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
I would agree.
Yep. And those shows being Batman the Animated Series and the X-Men animated series, both from the 90s.
Not only are those two cartoons the best superhero shows of the 90s, I think they still hold up as the best superhero shows of all time.
Ooh, maybe.
They've definitely been able to at least stay with a strong presence in comic culture and nerd society. Besides that, we are also going to do a Marvel and DC casting. We're going to do, after discussing the Batman animated series, we're going to cast Birds of Prey, mainly because it's kind of like an offshoot of the Batman series from the comic, and we didn't want to recast Batman because that's kind of like right in the thick of things right now with Justice League and with everything right now, so we didn't want to do that. And we are going to also do a recasting of X-Men, but we're kind of have a twist to it. We're going to review the X-Men show, and then we're going to recast X-Men as if it was a live-action movie put into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is really cool because right now it's obviously still owned by Fox, and so it is not connected at all with the MCU. So all of our castings has to tie into the MCU universe, which is really cool, I think.
I daydream about the X-Men joining the MCU all the time.
If we could get them into the Infinity War 2,
oh god,
something like that would be so awesome.
That would be awesome, but I do like what Fox is doing right now. I'd rather see the Fantastic Four in the MCU. I think they belong there.
Fantastic Four sucks. They're a terrible franchise. They're boring as fuck.
No,
Silver Surfer, cool. Fantastic Four suck.
That's what I'm saying. They belong with Marvel.
I'm talking about even from comics.
Oh, from comics?
Yeah, the Fantastic Four are boring.
How dare you, sir?
They've always been boring.
How dare you?
That's my 2 cents.
You're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion, of course, but it's wrong.
What is cool about Fantastic Four? Doctor Doom is cool. Silver Surfer's cool. But everything about the Fantastic Four is so lame.
I think it's the dynamic.
No, I completely agree.
Yeah. And that's why they keep failing, because they're lame characters that general society doesn't give a fuck about.
Well, I think they succeeded with the Incredibles movie. I think the dynamic that the Fantastic Four is supposed to have was captured perfectly in that movie, so it's kind of been ruined, but we'll see what happens in the future.
if Disney does the right thing and lets Pixar get a hold of some of the Marvel characters, that really would bounce back a lot of stuff that they should do.
I mean, everybody thought, my wife thought Captain America and Thor were super lame until they got their movies and they really stood out. I think it just takes the right person behind the camera and the right cast and the right story to really make you realize how cool they actually are. So how dare you?
That's fine. You made a very valid point. I can't fight that. All right, so let's go ahead and get things started with Batman the Animated Series. All right, Batman the Animated Series. This show started in 1992. It lasted until 1995, had a total of 85 episodes. This show is widely regarded as one of the best animated comic book shows of all time, but not even that, one of the best cartoons of all time.
Yeah.
It's won 4 Emmys. It's consistently rated high among some of the greatest cartoons of all time. I think IGN ranked it as the second greatest cartoon, only behind The Simpsons of all time. Wizard, also, which is a comic book magazine though, but ranked it also number 2 just behind The Simpsons. And TV Guide ranked it as the 7th greatest cartoon of all time, which is amazing.
What did they say was number 1?
I don't fucking remember. I didn't check.
7 seems kind of high. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's what Wikipedia told me.
No, it's definitely up there for me, just in terms of like what it inspired down the line. I think it basically inspired every other comic book cartoon after this, not only with style and you know, and it spawned like the entire DC cinematic universe. You know, everything from the Superman show to the Justice League cartoons, which are great cartoons in their own right, you know, all kind of stemmed from this.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I mean, Static Shock, Batman Beyond, Justice League United, like all of those were all tied into the same universe. And that was a really cool thing that you weren't seeing early on. You did get some of that. There was a crossover episode, I believe, with X-Men and Spider-Man at some point. So you got that with some other stuff. But like this show really branched out other shows because of how strong and popular it was.
Bruce Timm, who's the artist, and all subsequent DC animated shows really followed his art style. I think his character designs were so easy to adapt to other superheroes and so kind of iconic and simplistic. I think they were heavily inspired by the 1940s, sort of this Art Deco style.
Fleischer.
Yeah, by the Max Fleischer cartoons from the 1940s,
Yeah.
The Adventures of Superman. I see a lot of his influence in this show.
Definitely. Art design was a huge factor in this show. It definitely got a strong bit of its design from the Tim Burton Batmans, which the first one came out in 89, and then the second one came out in 92, which was when this show first aired. So I think there was some of that design that was easy to flow from the movies to the show, because there was a lot of that noir, a lot of that Art Deco style that kind of was tied in together between the movies that you saw in these big blockbuster films, but also saw them in cartoon form.
Yeah, I think it even spawned like its own art style. I think they call it Dark Deco.
Nice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This show did a great job with its noir feel, and I think that's what really ultimately makes it stand the test of time. I ended up watching about maybe 5 episodes or so recently, and they pretty much hold up. The artistic style of them doesn't get old for me. I know that the animation it's really like okay, it's not amazing, but just the look of the characters and the look of the backgrounds and the landscapes, that's what I loved a lot about this show.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I wouldn't say like the style of the animation is anything groundbreaking. You know, it's not like, you know, some kind of visually breathtaking anime or anything like that. It's really simple, but it worked so well for the stories they wanted to tell. Nothing was lost by the simplistic animation.
One thing I have to go on about is the voice acting, and particularly the voice acting of Kevin Conroy, who is forever Batman for me. I think he is, for our generation, he is like the Adam West. I know a lot of our parents, whenever they think of Batman, it's just Adam West is always Batman. For me, it is Kevin Conroy's voice.
No, you are not my father. I am not a disgrace. I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
I love just his inflection. I love just everything about the way he portrays Batman. Similarly, Mark Hamill is the best Joker, hands down. He encapsulates everything I want in a Joker because his voice is so perfect for it.
Didn't I say there's more than one way to get someone? Even as I speak, Catwoman is being trussed up at the Pussykins Pet Food Factory. First thing tomorrow, I'm sending a lovely case of cat food to Batman.
I'll say this is the best voice cast in any cartoon ever. And the way these actors embody their characters, it's very hard to deal with someone else voicing the character when you hear another actor play those roles. Like, when you hear another actor play the Joker, it's like, that's not the Joker. Mark Hamill is the Joker.
It's weird. And same thing with Kevin Conroy. Anytime I hear someone else try and do his voice, it's like, oh, that's not Batman.
Yeah.
Who's this poser?
Yeah, I agree.
Even when I read the comics still, I still hear it in Kevin Conroy's voice. I still hear it in Mark Hamill's voice. It was just spot on.
I'm going to make some enemies with this.
Oh, God, I knew you were going to say something, John.
Well, fine. Fuck you. I won't say any shit. I didn't get as into the animated series as you did. So for me, Michael Keaton was my first Batman. So, I mean, I did watch Adam West, but in my time, I've never been able to get over that hump. So I still see Michael Keaton as my Batman. I don't see Kevin Conroy as my Batman. Likewise, I don't think Mark Hamill was the best Joker, but I'm going to leave.
What the fuck? Oh, I know. Never mind. I know who your choice is.
I'm gonna leave that out.
Who is your best choice?
It's Cesar Romero. I know. You told me this before.
Yeah, it's Cesar Romero.
Oh, wow.
He is probably my fourth favorite Joker.
Well, I mean, if we're talking live action Jokers, that's a different story.
No, he's my third. No. Romero's my third favorite. Yeah, definitely.
I'd like to.
I mean, it doesn't matter. You guys are all wrong. The list is Hamill, then Ledger, then Romero, then Nicholson, then Leto. That's how it goes. I don't care what you guys say.
I don't know if Nicholson would be that far down the list for me.
Of course he is.
I liked Nicholson's Joker a lot.
Yeah, it was really good.
The only one I didn't like was Leto. Nicholson being my fourth favorite Joker was still an enjoyable Joker.
I'd agree with that.
I mean, it's a big drop. The top four are solid, and then the last one is like a joke.
I never latched on to Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne for some reason. Like, even when I was younger watching the show, I just never saw my Batman as, someone who was just so small and curly hair, and I don't know.
What I always thought, and I kind of still stand by this, Michael Keaton was the better Batman of those times, and I think Val Kilmer was the better Bruce Wayne. I think Val Kilmer was a pretty solid Bruce Wayne. I know he was blonde and that movie wasn't fantastic, but of those kind of 90s movies, that's how I felt. I think Keaton was a kick-ass Batman, but Val Kilmer was the better, cooler Bruce Wayne.
I don't know how much flack I'm going to get for this, but I actually think Ben Affleck so far has portrayed Bruce Wayne the best.
Okay.
I'm just getting laughed at now.
Actually, okay, so I would actually agree with that. I think going back to the comics,
Better than Bale?
Bale was his own thing.
But he was still Batman.
No, I
John's
think,
leaving
I
now.
think, I think,
He's like, I can't listen to this shit.
I just can't. No, I think Christian Bale was fantastic as Batman. It was really great, learning the origin of Batman and everything. But in terms of just someone who nailed the look of Batman, someone who nailed the sort of demeanor of Batman, or I guess specifically Bruce Wayne, I think it was Affleck. Just the square jaw, the dark hair. It's everything I wanted my Batman to sort of be.
I know we've had heated debates, and we are completely on different sides when it comes to the DCEU right now. I hate everything about it. I think Man of Steel is a piece of trash.
Oh, gosh.
I think Batman vs. Superman was so bad that it didn't warrant me going to want to watch the Ultimate Edition because it was so bad. And Suicide Squad just makes me want to punch a TV in the face if I ever see a frame of it again. So,
I agree. I agree.
you know what I'm gonna say, and this is my problem. I haven't seen Wonder Woman yet, and I know it's good, and I've got to see that. That's the only thing that can
What
help.
the hell,
save it.
dude? What the hell?
I know.
What the hell,
Yeah,
dude?
that's pretty ridiculous.
You can't bash the DC films without having seen them.
All right, they have a 75% suckage rate, so that's pretty bad.
Oh, jeez.
Take that, Jonathan.
I know a ton of people hate Man of Steel, but I think what they were trying to do, the sci-fi angle...
It's such a shitty movie.
I still contend, it has the best music, it has some of the best action, and has some of, the most, sort of, deep thinking, kind of philosophical story than any other superhero movie to come out in recent time.
Deep thinking? Kevin Costner wanted him to drown kids in a fucking school bus. No, that's not deep thinking.
It is.
That's just
it is,
cruel.
Though. If you wouldn't have said that, that's what makes it deep thinking. It's oh, holy shit, it makes you think about it. If I was a parent, what, and I was trying to keep my kids safe, how would I respond
Jonathan,
in the same way?
Just stop.
I'm gonna stop. I can't defend it to people who don't understand.
How about we go back to Batman the Animated Series, who we can all agree is a fantastic show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. I want to bring up, obviously, one of the most amazing things that came out of that show is the character Harley Quinn.
Oh, yeah.
She has exploded, and how interesting it was being a character that came from an animated show to a previously long-running comic book series.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that was unprecedented. Just how much Harley Quinn has embedded herself into pop culture now is incredible. And she all started from this show.
Yeah, and it's interesting the way, the writers came about creating her is essentially they were going to have the Joker dress in drag, and then they were like, no, actually he wouldn't do that, so we're going to create a female Joker henchman.
That's cool. Yeah, she's a great, I don't want to say balance to the Joker, but she works so well with him, and I really love their relationship and how stupidly one-sided it is.
It's tragic.
It's tragic. There is a lot of depth to that relationship.
One of my favorite episodes from the animated series was an episode called Mad Love, where they went into the origin, essentially, of Harley Quinn. It was so well done. I showed it to my wife a few days ago. She really liked it. She really came to understand the character of Harley Quinn and just how tragic a figure she is.
It was something that they completely got wrong in Suicide Squad,
Oh,
the
yeah.
movie, because they had a romantic relationship in that movie, but in the animated series, their relationship is much more abusive and much more just insane. The Joker doesn't love her. The Joker doesn't love anybody but himself. I don't know. Did you watch that episode, Mad Love, for this?
I did not.
She ends up capturing Batman using one of the Joker's plans, and for that he throws her out of a window. It's just
Yeah.
it's psychotic. But eventually what happens in the comics is that Harley Quinn, she kind of breaks away from the Joker and becomes her own character, and so she has that redemptive arc. I don't know if we're ever going to see like in the films.
I think we will. I think they're talking about the next film with Harley Quinn and Jared Leto's Joker will be the film rumorly titled for right now Mad Love. So I think if they do a close adaptation to that episode, and it was also a comic, it was one of the comics. I think it was a standalone. That's fantastic. I think you could still do that with the relationship they set up in Suicide Squad. So that'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Now, to go a little bit off topic, what are you guys' thoughts on Leonardo DiCaprio possibly taking the Joker role?
That's for like an Elseworlds kind of standalone thing. Jared Leto is still the DC Films universe Joker.
Yeah.
But I'm not thrilled with the Joker origin story at all.
Yeah, I don't want it. I don't need it. I like the mystery behind it. I want it to always be a part of like this ridiculous, crazy thing that it's such a part of his character is not really knowing his history and his origins that I don't want that personally.
Yeah.
Decaps is a great actor, but I don't see him as the Joker. I just don't see it personally.
Yeah, we all said that about Ledger.
Yeah, exactly. Who said that about Heath Ledger?
That's true.
No,
Yeah, I did. I was very vocal against him when I first heard about it, and then obviously I was blown away.
Yeah. Spees, come on. I don't know. Your opinions. I don't know.
Why are you
I'm still upset
attacking
that you
me?
don't like Man of Steel. I'm still upset that you don't like Man of Steel.
Is
Anyway.
it bad that I've still never seen Man of Steel?
No, John, it's good. Just don't. Just keep not watching it.
Okay.
Don't listen to what anyone else says about it. You watch it, you form your own opinions.
Yeah.
The most interesting thing about this spin-off is that, Martin Scorsese is doing it. And I think just, based off of his sort of like gangster kind of noir kind of style, I think if it's an adaptation of The Killing Joke, which I think it will be because like there is really no other like welcomed kind of origin story for the Joker, then I'm a little more inclined to like what they might do with it. Are you guys familiar with The Killing Joke?
Oh yeah.
I've seen it.
I've read it. I've read it and I've seen it. Yeah.
And Bruce Timm, he did a film just recently of The Killing Joke. I haven't seen it, and I
I
heard.
didn't care for it personally.
Oh, did you see the cartoon?
Yeah, I saw the cartoon.
Yeah.
I didn't care for it.
Oh.
I thought it was incredibly slow moving. It was just really boring. I was also really, really drunk when I watched it, so maybe that didn't help.
Well, yeah, I heard they expanded the story because the Killing Joke. How many issues was it?
I don't know. I'd have to go check.
But I mean, yeah, you definitely would have had to add story to make it a full feature-length film.
Yeah, and I thought they did that, but it just made it so slow when I was watching it. All right, it's so easy to go on tangents with you about comics. let's reel it back in to Batman.
Talking about Harley Quinn, she's one example, but I think another example, I'm not sure if you're about to go into this, was Mr. Freeze.
The way that they did Mr. Freeze was awesome. They really turned him into a tragic character.
Oh, yeah.
And he the depth that was added from his episode, which I did watch his episode, that one from season 1. I can't remember the name of the.
Yeah, it was like
episode.
the third episode they did. I forget the name of it.
Heart of Ice.
Yes, Heart of Ice. Really
Yeah.
strong episode.
Especially when you compare it to the comics character. You know, he was basically just a dumb guy with a freeze ray who accidentally, you know, he has to live in this protective suit because he can't live in the warmth. But the cartoon is what introduced his wife, and that's become such a big important part of the character.
Yeah.
It's the whole reason we got Arnold Schwarzenegger in a movie as that character was because of the animated show.
Yes.
I mean,
thank you.
Unfortunately,
he was a C-list villain in the comics, and it was the animated show that really brought him to the forefront. What's interesting, though, is that you mentioned that he's tragic, but later on in the comics, it turns out he actually ends up waking his wife up from cryostasis, and it turns out she didn't even know him. That wasn't really his wife.
Whoa, that's fucked up.
what? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
he was like some stalker guy.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah,
That's weird. They shouldn't have done that.
yeah. It becomes less tragic and more just freaking creepy.
Creepy.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we kind of talked a little bit about, obviously, with the voice acting. One thing I want to throw out is some other great names that added to the voice acting cast here. Ron Perlman did Clayface. We love great voice from Ron Perlman. Ed Asner did a character. Ed Begley Jr. Frank Welker did a couple different voices, some animal voices. We pretty much mention Frank Welker every episode because he's in everything from our childhood.
Yeah,
I was looking up like who are the highest grossing like actors of all time, like just from all their films combined, and Stan Lee is up there. I think he's like number 1 or 2 or something.
Okay.
Frank Welker is in like the top 5 as well, because Frank Welker is the voice of Megatron, so he's been in like all the Transformers movies. He also is just in like every Disney movie as a voice of some animal or something. Like, it's pretty insane, like all the credits that he has. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there, like, oh, another episode where Frank Welker does a voice.
My favorite cameo, I think, was Adam West in the Grey Ghost episode.
That's another one that I watched as well. Yeah, strong episode.
I saw that one too. I love that episode.
It was a really good like passing of the torch, obviously. Another thing that worked really well in the show was the music.
Oh, yeah.
Danny Elfman did the score for the title song. It was kind of like a play off of the score that he did for the movies, the Tim Burton movies. And then another composer kind of took it from there, and the music worked really, really well, in my opinion.
I forget the name of the one who took over for Danny Elfman, but she's like his collaborator. I think they both worked on the Batman films together.
Exactly. She was, I believe, the conductor of the orchestra that did Danny Elfman's music. So like they did work together on Tim Burton's.
And I love that Batman theme.
Yes.
Like, I still think, like, I'm not sure whether I like Hans Zimmer's or John Williams' Superman score best yet, but I still definitely prefer, out of all the Batman themes, Danny Elfman's. He's mentioned that he's going to do the John Williams Superman theme in the new Justice League movie. I really, really hope he also does his Batman theme. Just sneaks it in there.
Thinking of Danny Elfman makes me think of Tim Burton, which makes me think of Tim Burton's Superman, which makes me think of Nicolas Cage as Superman. That would have been fucked up.
Yeah.
That costume was just atrocious.
Yes, it was.
I think I would have liked to have seen it just out of like pure macabre interest, I guess.
It's like a train wreck. You can't look away.
Exactly, yeah. Watching it out of irony would just be fantastic. One thing that I think the show did really well is utilize the knowledge base of its audience, knowing about Batman and knowing like the comics to an extent. Like, it dived right into the world of Batman. You didn't have to build everything up with an origin story.
Oh, absolutely.
And all this kind of stuff. Like, you got some of that. It kind of did some flashbacks, or you got some of that stories later on, but you dove right into Batman is a thing. In the second episode, Robin shows up. You don't have to have all of Dick Grayson's origin, which they do show. They say that later, but it was more like in a flashback and whatnot.
Yeah.
You didn't have to set everything up step by step. You could just go into the world and just dive right in and just enjoy it. You didn't have to everything wasn't, having to be a cumulative story, which was really nice.
Like, you even take a look at the opening titles or the original opening titles for the series. It never said the word Batman in the opening titles.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of had this, like this cool scene where Batman takes out some bank robbers. And then, it shows him standing on top of a building, and that just iconic kind of like against the red sky, and there's that lightning flash. But it never says like the Batman animated series or anything like that. It just, viewers are familiar enough with this iconic character enough that it didn't need that.
Exactly. That's something I think Zack Snyder could probably learn from. Just to throw a little bit more
What?
shade.
What?
One thing I gotta mention though is this show wasn't without faults. Yeah, it's fantastic, but there were some cheesy moments, and I really want to say that I watched, I think, the first couple episodes that the Joker was introduced, and the Joker really wasn't fleshed out. It took a while. I'd say probably like 3 or 4 episodes in that the Joker was in before he really kind of became the sadistic Joker that we now know and love. But that first episode, which was called Christmas with the Joker, was actually a really fucking bad episode. I don't know if you guys watched that one, but like the Joker was just bad, and actually the voice, even you could tell Mark Hamill's voice wasn't quite at the Joker that we know yet. It wasn't acting properly. It just wasn't crazy enough. So there were some cheesiness factors, like all Batman episode or all Batman iterations. The Bat computer was just so goddamn smart, and he could just tell it to do anything, and it could like pretty much he could cure cancer if he asked it to, but he never did. Like all those things, it wasn't particularly realistic, but the show surpassed all of that stuff, obviously, and it was just a really fun, interesting, dark, which made that really cool and made it, I think, rewatchable as an adult. It had the artistic feel of it, made it something that I could totally see myself just coming back and watching, and I'll probably go back and watch it because right now it's on, I think, Amazon Prime, and so that's how I watched it, and I'll just go through and probably watch all the episodes.
Well, shit, I didn't know it was on Amazon Prime. I just spent a fortune spending individual episodes on iTunes.
I watched it on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Whatever. The Bat computer. Honestly, when I think of the Bat computer, I still, when I think of the Batcave in general, I still think of the Batcave from the animated series. I don't think any film has been able to capture that same kind of feel.
One of the problems that I have with the show, I think it holds up really well. Let me say that. It probably holds up better for me now as an adult than it did as a kid, because I think one of the faults of the show is that Paul Dini, he wrote some very mature, sometimes boring storylines into his episodes, and there were a few episodes where they weren't focused on Bruce Wayne or any of the bad guys. They were just focused on like two people having a relationship or something. Like I had a hard time with the Harvey Dent episodes where he turns into Two-Face. It was a 2-parter. You could have done away with one of those.
Yeah. Fine.
I feel, because it was just, there's a lot of stuff that didn't hold my interest as a kid, and actually didn't hold a lot of my interest either as an adult, but I do have a short attention span, so...
You know, I won't disagree with you. I remember thinking there was an episode where, like, Bruce Wayne is investigating, like, some kind of, like, some kidnappings, and it turns out that they're going to, like, the slave labor camp, and he, like, gets amnesia. When I was younger, I thought that episode was, like, the most boring episode ever. But watching it as an adult, I think it's pretty darn good.
It does a great job of adding a lot of emotion and intensity and dark feel, where it's a show that I think does a great job of rewatchability, and obviously it's got kind of everything that I would want, and it's why it became so popular. So I've got mad thumbs up for this show. Obviously, it sounds like you guys and was a big part of your childhood and kind of helping grow your love of comics and probably of Batman in general.
I think when you rewatch this show, it holds up far better than other shows of this decade or of this time frame. Mm-hmm. Like the late 80s, early 90s. You go back and you watch some of those cartoons, and it's like, what the hell was I thinking as a kid? Was I a stupid kid? This is horrible. But you watch this one and you don't feel so stupid.
Yeah.
2 big thumbs up for me. I think even as a Marvel fan, you have to give respect to this show as the best superhero animated show of its time.
Yeah, I think it set up sort of the approach that they took with the with the Spider-Man animated series, and maybe to like a lesser extent what they did with like X-Men Evolution. The simple style, they're definitely going for a tone and just the atmosphere. I don't think any of the other shows though have been able to capture it. What Batman did, and I'm talking about the early Batman episodes, because I know later on, like they redid, I think it was like season 3 or season 4, maybe even earlier, where they kind of shifted the animation, just the look of the characters. Like the Joker's eyes were black, and you know, it seemed like maybe even more simple.
The last, I think, like 15 episodes, or like the last season, they actually also even changed the name to The New Adventures of Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
And they changed it from Batman the Animated Series. And it did have slightly different animations. And you got like Tim Drake as well as Nightwing in there. So yeah, they did try some things later. And I agree with like those first like 3 seasons were clutch. And they were just a huge part.
When you had Tim Drake, like that was when the show moved to Warner Brothers. It originated on Fox.
Yes, it was Fox Kids, yeah.
even at Fox, it had like two different versions. Like there was the Batman animated series, and there was the Adventures of Batman and Robin. And I guess Fox wanted the show to be more kid friendly, so they had this requirement that every single episode had to feature Robin. And I think for the reasons that you were mentioning earlier, because maybe they felt some episodes were just too boring for kids. They thought kids might be able to relate to a kid character like Robin. But even when it did make the switch to Warner Brothers and everything, it was still a fantastic show.
It's I think it rightfully so stands the test of time.
I think the way it faded out too, it was done better than, let's say, X-Men, which we're going to talk about later. Because this show, it kind of like went into Justice League Unlimited, I think.
It went to the Batman and Superman Adventures, which went into Justice League, which I guess it's not going on anymore, but had a good run.
So now we are going to do a casting of Birds of Prey, who is like kind of an offshoot group of the Batman comics. Jonathan, you mind letting us know a little bit more about them?
The Birds of Prey, I think they started in the 90s. It was after Barbara Gordon was paralyzed by the Joker in The Killing Joke. Black Canary, she'd always been like a Justice League member, but they had her team up with Oracle. She was, sort of the field operative, and Oracle was kind of the
man in the chair.
Yeah, man in the chair, exactly.
Like literally.
Yeah, the wheelchair.
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't mean it like that. I meant like the tiger guy.
I took it that far.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I don't think they ever officially called themselves the Birds of Prey. I don't think it was until much, much later that they actually gave themselves that team name. But they've often worked with a character called Huntress, who is also in the Bat family. This team is essentially a Bat family book. It's sort of like the women of the Bat family get together and they go off and do their own missions and things like that. If you could name 3 primary members of the Birds of Prey who have sort of like, for the most part, been there a majority of the time, it's Oracle, Black Canary, and Huntress.
Yeah, they're a very awesome, interesting, strong female-led group. We're going to cast a couple more than just the 3, so we will cast Black Canary, Oracle, and Huntress. We're also going to do Cassandra Cain, who is kind of the newest Batgirl in that universe, I believe.
Not the newest, but she's one of the more popular ones.
Okay, she has been a Batgirl. And we're also going to do Hawkgirl, Lady Shiva, and then we did a Lady Blackhawk, who's kind of like a pilot for the team. I don't know if you guys ended up doing a Lady Blackhawk or not.
Yeah, super generic. She wasn't on the team for very long. I know she was on there during the New 52 relaunch in the comics, and she was there during Gail Simone's run, but she kind of fits with the whole bird theme.
So that's why we got her.
Why not?
The Blackhawks were a team of fighter pilots during World War II in the comics. So I don't know, somehow she traveled to the present day from World War II, and that's kind of her backstory.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, she's a pilot.
All right. Well, since she's lame, let's just get her out of the way. Let's just go ahead and start with Lady Blackhawk, who, looking into it, is probably the most generic, least interesting character of these to go with.
Yeah.
We picked someone. So, to go over the casting, how we did teams of brothers versus brothers. So as opposed to 4 casting with all of us together, me and my brother John debated and got our cast ready, and we are now debating our cast merits versus John and Joseph's their cast. See if with all of their might.
Can I say how difficult it was to agree upon a cast? Like, I was ready to get into a fist fight with this fool over here over the casting on this. I'm not entirely 100% happy with it. It's very much a compromise, but I'm very curious to see what you guys chose.
Yeah, I'm going to be very interested if we have completely different people or if we like run into the same folks in the same style at all, or what.
Our process, Jonathan and our process, was basically arguing and then somebody saying, fuck it. Just go with your idea. I don't care anymore.
Yeah, I think maybe John and I agreed a little bit more than that and had a good general debate. But yeah, not that bad.
That's good. You guys are good brothers.
So, Lady Blackhawk, she is just a generic white girl who is good at piloting and probably has some fighting skills.
No, she's a good marksman.
She's a good marksman. Okay. So
yeah.
She's good with guns. Well, I kind of went with someone who I have seen be a good fighter because I really don't know anything about Lady Blackhawk, so I assumed maybe I could make her look cool at least. So I went with Gina Carano, who is best known as Angel Dust, the female villain from the recent Deadpool movie.
Okay.
Yeah, just generic, basic white girl.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of.
When I think of Gina Carano, I think of like the Hulk of women. because she's buff. Actually, but she was really good in Haywire. That movie with Channing Tatum. She was a spy.
We almost went Ronda Rousey for this part, just because we wanted someone who could look tough. But we figured Gina Carano, she also looks tough, but she is a better actress, so that's why we went with her.
Yeah, I can see that. We went completely different.
Okay.
Jonathan, go ahead.
We chose Natalie Dormer.
Oh,
You may know her from Game of Thrones. You may know her from The Tudors. The reason we went with Natalie Dormer was I felt like she sort of has like a classic look. And when you're dealing with a character who, comes from the 1940s, is sort of this time-displaced character, sort of like Captain America, we figured she needs to look good both in, the 1940s and modern day. And I think Natalie Dormer does that.
She actually had a small part in the Captain America movie, The First Avenger. She was in that film as this flirty SSR officer, and she looks great in the 1940s.
She was the one that Haley Atwell catches him kissing.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Okay. Well, let's move on to
Wait.
Hot Girl.
How do we determine who wins?
Oh, we just fuck it. You win. I don't care.
Yay! Yay!
Actually,
for the
I'm
winners.
gonna disagree. I'm gonna disagree, and I'll tell you why later on your choice.
Oh, because you cast her as somebody else.
Maybe. Let's go to Hot Girl.
Yeah, let's do Hot Girl.
Who hasn't been on the team, for every iteration.
No.
She kind of is someone, if you know the Hawkman and that kind of that race of people, they're very strong. They have like the nth metal. They're just warriors. They're badass warriors.
Yeah, her origin is way too complicated to go into.
It's incredibly complicated. I did have to look into it. One thing that I saw, she was kind of the reincarnation from the first iteration of Hawk Girl. She was the reincarnation of an Egyptian god. Is something like that?
Egyptian, I think it was an Egyptian priestess.
Well, I used that history for my choice, and so we wanted someone who we wanted to our choice for our choice. We wanted someone who could kind of tie in that Egyptian side of it. We didn't want to just, these girls are all basic, they're just whiteys. Like they're all whiteys, and so we kind of wanted to mix it up a little bit.
Put a little flavor in there.
So a little flavor, and so we added a little Algerian who could pass for Egyptian. We went with Sofia Boutella, who was the recent Mummy, and she was in The Kingsman as the badass chick with no legs.
Yeah,
she is a fantastic actress who has done some really cool action already, and so that's why I kind of think she could play the tough hot girl pretty well.
We actually went the same route. Sophia Boutella.
Everybody wins.
Oh, wow. Holy shit.
You're a winner, and you're a winner.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, for the exact same reasons.
Yeah, exact same reasons. I also think, if not Sophia Boutella, if I could choose someone else, maybe Priyanka, I'm going to mispronounce her name. Priyanka Chopra? Mm-hmm. She's the villain of the Baywatch movie that just came out.
Oh, okay.
But I want to say she's Indian. I might be wrong on that.
Yeah, I think she is
Pakistani or something. But I think she's Indian. I think it's better to cast Sophia since she has those Algerian roots that are adjacent to Egypt and stuff.
Yeah,
so.
She's a dancer. I think she was a dancer before she was an actress. So she has so much physicality to her in all of the roles she's played. It seems like from The Kingsman to she was in the Star Trek Beyond film.
Yes. With the girl who was all in the all white paint or whatever that race, whatever that was, the alien.
Yeah, I think she would be a fantastic Hawk Girl.
Good call, guys.
You guys have good tastes.
Yes. Let's dive into Cassandra Cain. She's a character I don't know too much about other than from what I've heard from y'all's podcast when I listened
then you know
to
everything.
Her episode.
You know everything then.
Then I do know everything. I mean, she is apparently one of the most skilled and talented martial artists in all of DC.
Yeah, you can make the argument that she is the best.
Yeah, that's pretty damn impressive. But she was trained by I almost called it the Legion of Doom. What is it? The League of Assassins. League of Assassins. Yeah, she was trained by the League of Assassins and then became good. And her mother, if I remember, is Lady Shiva, who we're also going to be casting. So we'll do those back to back. Let's start off with the daughter, Cassandra Cain. We poached from Marvel again, and we went with Palm Clementif, who played Mantis in the recent Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
She's
not someone who has all of the action chops probably or the martial arts skills, but I think she's got a good look. She could do some of that stuff. Just kind of looking at some of her other credits. So that's who we went with. What about you guys?
I actually really liked her as Mantis. I really liked that
Yeah.
character in that film. We went a little bit younger. In developing this casting, I sort of like had to come up with a story for what the movie would be in my own head. And because of, we also have Lady Shiva, and we decided to go with, her name is Tian Jing. You're probably not familiar with the name, but she was in Kong, Skull Island. Did you see that film?
I did not.
Nope.
Okay, well, this is completely lost on you guys then. She was an young Asian actress in that film, and she also had a strong supporting role in the film The Great Wall, the one with Matt Damon that was really controversial that came out recently.
Yeah, it did not look
So
good.
she's an up and comer. She seems talented. You'll just have to Google her, I guess.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, she spells her name Tianjing.
Yeah.
So if you want to look her up.
Okay.
So you should do it now, so we decide who wins.
Okay. Man, you guys are really fucking into this battle.
Dude, we have a podcast where we're super competitive.
Yeah, she looks like a skinny Asian girl.
Yeah. Yeah.
She is definitely younger than our casting, but not by much. It doesn't look like. But yeah, I could go either way. I'd say Tianjing looks a little bit more the part.
Yeah, we win again.
I guess it all depends on who you cast as Shiva. Because
Yes.
Yeah, that's a big.
I know we won Shiva. We cast an actress that we both really like. We're also big fans of the show, even though it's had its ups and downs. The show being Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Someone who is a badass fighter in that show, Ming-Na Wen, who plays Agent May. She is a great actress. I want to see her in more things. She obviously has the action chops. She could be a scary fucking villain, who Lady Shiva's kind of is the villain of this series. I think would work really well.
So Joseph tried to convince me of this. When he explained who he wanted, I was like, "Who the fuck is that? I don't know who that is." So we ended up not going with her. Although I'm sure she's great. We actually ended up going with not my first pick, but definitely I think a strong pick, Lucy Liu.
She was on our list. Lucy Liu was on our list, and I think she's okay, but Ming-Na Wen's better, so we won that round.
my second pick was Maggie Q. That's who I wanted.
Oh, okay.
I thought she would have been great.
Yeah, that's a good call. She would have been better than Lucy Liu, I think.
Yeah, I agree. See, Jonathan?
Whatever.
Told you.
Whatever. My second pick was Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah. We pretty much had it between Michelle Yeoh, Lucy Liu, and Ming-Na Wen. But once we came up with Ming-Na, we were like, that's the one.
Is Ming-Na older?
She's not as old as Michelle Yeoh, but she's 53 right now.
She looks great for 53.
Absolutely. So let's move on to the big three of the Birds of Prey. We have Black Canary, Oracle, and Huntress. And let's go ahead and start with Black Canary. You guys might have mentioned this actress earlier, and that would be someone from Game of Thrones, who is pretty badass and manipulative at times in her character in Game of Thrones. And I think she's got a great look to her, and she's a very strong actress. And so we went with Natalie Dormer for Black Canary.
Good choice. I like that. We were thinking of her as well. Yeah.
But ultimately, and again, this was not my first choice, we went with Sienna Miller.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's very blonde, very leggy, which is what you want in a Black Canary character. But I think her portrayal of the Baroness in G.I. Joe was a pretty good, I think, precursor of what she could do with Black Canary.
One of the only okay things out of the G.I. Joe movie. I absolutely hated that thing.
Oh,
yeah,
it sucked.
I like Snake Eyes too.
Yeah.
I like Snake Eyes, but that was.
It looked cool.
That's because it was Ray Park, and Ray Park is pretty good in everything he does.
So let's say it's a tie on that one. Maybe a slight edge to us for Natalie Dormer.
I have to ask you. Charlize Theron. What would you have thought of that decision?
I like her. I think she's a little bit older than I would want for
Yes.
some of those actresses.
Yeah.
I think I want them all around like the same age, or most of them, besides Cassandra Cain, who could have been the youngest. All the others, I think I would have wanted them right around the same age. And though as strong actress as she is, I think just would have changed the dynamic from what I wanted. And it would have been too much of like, oh, I'm the boss, I'm the leader. Even though Canary is kind of like that, still, I think the age gap wouldn't have been how I wanted it.
I actually think Oracle is probably the leader of the group. But if you had to ask me who I think the protagonist of a film would be, it would probably be Black Canary. Just because Black Canary is able to do more.
Run?
Oh my god.
Well, what?
Holy shit.
Did I say? I mean, not that being handicapped. Shit.
Just stop talking. Just stop talking.
It's an action film. Shit. Let's move on.
Just stop.
Yeah, yep. So speaking of Oracle, you need someone who is a strong actress. You need someone who can do a lot. I think, just just sitting down.
Jeez.
Oracle is a badass character. Barbara
Yeah.
Gordon as Batgirl was badass, and she was really cool. And then, she got paralyzed from the Killing Joke, from the Joker, and honestly was able to turn that into a character that a lot of handicapped people really could look up to.
Oh, yeah.
And, that could become someone who is just as integral and just as important of the team as anyone else. And I think Oracle was a very progressive leap forward in comics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Making that, what was nice about it was it wasn't where a lot of the times they make like someone who has a handicap, then they get bionics, and then they can run, and then they do stuff. No, this person, she was paralyzed, but she was still a badass while she was paralyzed.
You could have easily done that in comics. I mean, with how fantastical comics could be. I really appreciate and admire the fact that DC didn't do that. Well, I mean, they've sort of done that now. Barbara Gordon can walk again.
Okay.
They cured her paralysis, but I never liked that. I always really liked Barbara Gordon as Oracle, and I missed that character.
So Oracle's, I think I agree. It's a really cool character. You've got to get pretty much, there's two main things, in my opinion, or I guess maybe three. You have to have a strong actress who can do that kind of a performance. You have to have someone who looks good in glasses, which I don't know if we really cast that, but you also have to have a redhead. Barbara Gordon is a classic redhead, and someone who could pull off redhead. So we went with an actress who we liked, but mainly because of her red hair. Yeah, we went with Bryce Dallas Howard, who was in the most recent Jurassic World movie, and I think she's just a good enough actress that she could do a good job.
Yeah, that's a fantastic choice. I would be totally happy if Bryce Dallas Howard was Oracle. We had her on our list for sure, but ultimately we ended up going with Emma Stone. Yeah, I don't necessarily think she could have pulled off Batgirl. She may be a little bit too doe-eyed. She doesn't have the physical.
She's too comical. Yeah, is Oracle that happy-go-lucky? And I think it's so hard to pull that away from it. Well, Emma Stone's a great actress. She's actually done some very dramatic roles too, so she could pull it off. But when I think of her, I just think of like too much comedy for my Oracle.
We were definitely putting her in this role because of her dramatic chops. But if you need comedic relief, you have it. She's there.
Also, I thought she was a dead ringer for Bruce Timm's drawing his depiction of Barbara Gordon. I think they're pretty identical.
You put some dark eyeliner on Emma Stone, and it looks really close to Bruce Timm's Barbara Gordon, I think.
Good call. I'm not sure if there was a winner there, but good call. So let's say even. And so we're going to end things off with Huntress, who I think has the coolest look out of all of these. Maybe Cassandra Cain. I like Cassandra Cain's Batgirl. She looks really cool, but Huntress just has, it's not maybe a very logical suit because it shows some skin where it probably shouldn't need to, and you should be probably covered up with stuff. But I think the Huntress just looks badass. She looks like almost, a different type of Batman. Is she the daughter of Batman and Catwoman?
In some versions.
In some versions. Okay.
Yeah, in sort of like retconned continuity, Batman doesn't have a daughter. He never married Catwoman, although they're engaged right now. Yeah, in some versions, she is the daughter of Batman. In other versions, she is just a mob boss's daughter. And that's sort of the version I prefer, honestly. Her costume is definitely cool. It was redesigned by Jim Lee during the Hush storyline back in early 2000s, I think. Yeah, she looks like she's part of the Bat family. It's very, she has like belts everywhere. Again, it shows her midriff, but then again, Black Canary wears fishnet stockings. And she's badass enough to get away with that. I guess so is Huntress.
So how about you guys start off with who you cast?
Oh, what? Why?
Why not?
All right.
Because this is my podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, bitch.
Okay, so for Huntress, we went with Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones.
Okay. She's a lot shorter than my Huntress would be.
Yeah, she's a little bit shorter, but we thought she pulled off a very good, or at least I should say I thought, because Joseph doesn't watch Game of Thrones because he TVs incorrectly.
Yeah.
But she has a force behind her. Like, she plays angry kind of pretty well, and the Huntress is kind of an angry character. She's borderline, she's almost like the Punisher. She wants to kill the enemies, but being a part of Batman's team and Batman's family, she kind of has to withhold that urge to do that. So it's definitely a dark character. It's definitely an angry character. And I thought Emilia Clarke could do that. Plus, she doesn't look bad as a brunette either.
No, I mean, that's her natural color, and she's, very, very pretty as a brunette, so not bad.
My choice was Aubrey Plaza, for the record.
I like that less, actually.
Oh, never mind then. Strike that from the record. Strike it.
We went with, actually, this casting was the person who is our least known actress. She's a TV actress, and she's best known as a character Octavia Blake from the show The 100. I don't know if either of you guys have watched that.
No.
So she's got some action chops from that show. Her name is Marie Avgeropoulos. I think she has the perfect look for what I want from a huntress. I'll give you a second to IMDb.
Oh yeah, she's great.
I just Googled her. That's not bad.
You win. You win that one.
Hey!
What?
All
Over
right.
Amelia Clark? Don't say that.
Yes.
You don't know.
No, yeah,
No.
she looks great. Yeah, I like her much
What are
better.
you doing? What are you doing?
I mean, just check her out. Check her out. She looks like Huntress, like from the pages, in my opinion.
Yes.
I just want to say, if it were up to me, if I had my dream cast, like if I had a Photoshop a poster for this movie, I would have actually done Charlize Theron as Black Canary, Jessica Chastain as Oracle, and Kate Beckinsale as Huntress. Just putting that out there.
Those are great choices as well.
Old.
I'm just
Oh,
curious.
yeah, they're older than I would want for my Birds of Prey. Not to say that those women can't do that and be badass. And if it was an older version, perfect. But that's not what that's not what we cast. So
Right.
Yeah.
I'm curious, did you guys ever see the Birds of Prey series that came out
Oh,
in
yeah.
2002?
Oh yeah, I watched every episode.
it did not last very long.
Okay. I never saw it, so I was wondering how it was.
Except in that one, Huntress had cat powers, right?
Yeah. She actually was the daughter of Batman and Catwoman. Black Canary was like, she was the youngest of the group. She had weird powers other than the sonic scream. I forgot what she had. It was like it was almost like Unbreakable. I think when she touched someone, she like got premonitions. It was dumb. But the one good thing about that show was actually, and I'm totally gonna blank on her name right now, the lady who played Barbara Gordon.
Dina Meyer.
Was that it?
Dina Meyer, yeah.
I loved her as Oracle. Yeah, I thought she was a fantastic Oracle.
Oh, love Dina Meyer. Oh my God.
I thought she pulled off the glasses really well. I thought she pulled off the Batgirl costume really well. I was really happy with that choice.
So that was Birds of Prey. We actually had some good crossover, and like we thought of the same people for a lot of stuff. But it's obvious that John and I won. So
Whatever, dude.
All right, so now we've played in the DC universe. Now we're going to go to the good guys, to the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
Fuck.
We're going to talk about X-Men, not called X-Men the Animated Series, which for some reason I thought for the longest time just called X-Men. Ran from 1992 to 1997. Interestingly, though, there was a pilot made in 1989 called Pride of the X-Men.
Pride as in Kitty Pride.
Right.
It was spelled the same as Kitty Pryde, so Pryde. And so one of the executives from that production team was a woman named Margaret Loesch. And after that pilot failed, she became the president of Fox Kids. So she was instrumental in getting the X-Men series made. So once she moved over from Marvel Productions to Fox Kids, she basically just bugged them until they agreed to do an X-Men series. And that's how we got the 1992 X-Men, the animated series.
Yeah, Fox Kids was pretty awesome back in the day because
Oh, yeah.
it also had Batman the Animated Series that came out, I think, in September of 92, and then the X-Men show came out in late October of 92. They just went all in on comic cartoons.
Fox Kids was the shit back in the day.
Didn't they have Power Rangers? Did Power Rangers start on Fox Kids?
Yes.
It just had my favorite shows. Every Saturday, I was like, yeah. And actually, was it like even during the weekday mornings they started off with cartoons? Because I remember watching them like before going to school. It was really cool. I missed that. I feel like they don't have that anymore. Now it's like friggin' like Nickelodeon. You have to have your own cable channel to have that same kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
I think more than any other television show, it was this show, X-Men, that really brings back the memories. Like, it makes me think of breakfast cereal. And it evokes those breakfast cereal smells, you know? It's just, I loved it as a kid. I'd wake up every Saturday morning pretty much going, da-na-na-na-na-na-na,
Yeah.
da-na-na-na-na-na-na.
Yeah, it's got a great theme song.
Yep, which was composed by a guy named Ron Wasserman, who also composed the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers theme.
Oh, shit.
That dude's awesome. He's my new favorite musician.
This has nothing to do with anything, but I never liked Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, so
You're too old. You're older than all of us.
Yeah, I know.
So maybe that's pressed to do
I'm
with
the
it.
old man here.
When I was saying that Batman the animated series is a show you could go back and watch as an adult, Power Rangers is not a show you could go back and watch as an adult. It is horrible. That's one of those shows where like, I was a stupid kid for watching this show because it is horrible. It is the worst.
Yeah. Was I dumb?
I think you're probably dead on. I've seen actually a couple recently too, and it is so bad.
Yeah. But X-Men was good, so.
Yes, but X-Men was good, so let's talk about that. One thing I want to add is, I mean, that theme song, just how cool it is. When I was rewatching these, I kind of did like a compare and contrast between Batman the Animated Series and this X-Men show. I don't know if you guys did, but one thing that I think X-Men did better was the opening theme song and just like the opening credits. It was awesome. That opening was iconic for me, and it just really got me into the show.
That is super. That's heresy.
Well,
I
it's
don't
a
know
tough
what you're
call.
talking about.
I'm not saying Batman Animated Series was bad. I'm just saying the X-Men one was better.
I think they were both good on different levels though. I think if you're a rock and roll 90s kid, you loved the X-Men opening. But if you were like a nerd, kind of like Jonathan, like a dweeby classical music kid,
Super nerd, like the worst of all nerds. Yeah.
then you probably like the Batman one more. John, you being a music teacher, which one did you like more?
Oh, X-Men. Yeah. X-Men.
That's the Marvel kid too.
I'm surrounded.
Yeah, this is just becoming a shit on Jonathan
What
podcast.
the hell?
I think the opening animation too, where you see all their names and you see the character do a small display of their powers.
Yeah, that is cool.
That stuck with me.
Yeah, those opening credits are so cool. I mean, the Batman one was fine, but like, yeah, the way that they did it with each different character was awesome.
Yes. For the longest time, I thought that one of Wolverine's powers was to shoot electricity from his claws.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I also thought that Storm could create clothing from her electricity because it made that was
what the
so
hell?
weird. It
What
didn't
the
make
hell?
any sense.
Yeah, she did that in the first episode. I thought that was
Yeah,
weird.
like that was dumb as fuck.
I just remember just playing at the playground, like playing X-Men. I was like Wolverine. I'd be like, I just shocked you with my lightning.
Yeah, playing X-Men on the playground, the kid who always wore glasses would always be the one who played Cyclops. I remember that. Yeah, and the bigger kid was always Beast. I remember that, yeah. And I always liked to be Morph, so. Yeah.
Wow, you pick like the asshole character.
I know!
Yeah, you're the evil bastard.
But I was like, I could just be all of you, so I'm just going to beat up all of you because I could be you, so that's why I was Morph.
All right, speaking of Morph, let's kind of go into the beginning of the X-Men series. Morph was a character that never appeared in the comics, or did, but appeared as a character called Changeling. But since DC had trademarked the name Changeling, they couldn't use it. So they came up with Morph.
Wasn't there also a character called Mimic?
Yeah, there was a Mimic.
Yeah, that's somebody
but
else.
Mimic was different though. He wasn't like Morph.
It's a different character. And Morph was specifically picked to die in the first episode. He hadn't been seen for a long time in the comics by then. I mean, they had to change his name anyway. But apparently he somehow became somewhat of a cult fan figure. And so they had to bring him back, which I'm not a fan of it. In my mind, if you kill someone off, they stay dead.
Yeah, but I remember the episode that they brought him back, and he was like Wolverine's buddy, and but he was like just an asshole.
Yeah.
And like evil when he came back and stuff like that. Yeah, I didn't like that at all.
He was kind of like that in the first episode, so.
Yeah, he was a dick.
One of the things I did kind of want to mention, even though they didn't come from this animated series did for the characters of Gambit and Jubilee what Batman the Animated Series did for Harley Quinn. This came out in 92. Jubilee was only introduced in 1989, and she had very, very few parts in the comics, and Gambit had just been introduced in 1990, so their popularity pretty much has everything to do with this animated series, not with the comics.
Do you know why? Because you mentioned earlier that they did the pilot was based off of Kitty Pryde, I am assuming. Do you know why they went with a Jubilee, like kind of like POV character instead of Kitty Pryde?
Instead of Kitty Pryde, Marvel just pushed for it. I think they were just pushing for their new characters, and that's why.
Yeah, well, she was very much a character of the time period. You look at her and she's dressed out in all pinks. She has the leather jacket. She's very much a child of the late 80s, early 90s. So she more than Kitty Pryde was.
Definitely.
And one of the things I did really like about the X-Men series, at least the first couple seasons, they were designed from beginning to end. The whole story arc went over the entire series, or at least for each season. It wasn't designed as individual ones and then somewhat of a story arc. Everyone continued into the next one because they had planned the entire first season from beginning to end. Actually, they planned the whole first season thinking that that was the only shot they were going to get, which is why it kind of ends very nicely at the end of the first season, because they assumed they were only going to get one season, so they created a whole story arc from beginning to end.
And that's cool. That's definitely something that can't be said about Batman. Batman was much more of like an anthology kind of villain of the episode kind of show.
Yeah, and each episode of X-Men would always start with previously on X-Men.
Yep.
And you didn't feel bad as a kid missing an episode or two, because the first 5 minutes of every episode was the last episode. They would always recap.
Those lookbacks were also pretty comprehensive, so you got a sense of exactly what had happened. They also drew a lot, largely, especially in the first couple seasons, from the comics. The first season drew a lot from the Days of Future Past series, drew a lot from the Apocalypse series. Aspects of the story, not the overall arcing, but they drew aspects of it to create one season. Basically, they kind of took some of their greatest hits and then morphed them together to create one whole story arc. And then they eventually did the Phoenix one, I think in the third season.
Yes.
What I really liked about the X-Men series, rewatching it now, it was basically exactly the comics put into cartoon form.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something that was I liked about the Batman show was Batman animated series was its own thing, though. It was awesome. Yes, it had pretty much everything taken from the comics, but it really felt like the X-Men show was like a exact duplication from the comics, just put onto motion form. And that's what I really like about it.
The art style borrowed heavily from the Jim Lee, Chris Claremont run that started in 1990. I think everybody had that version of X-Men 1 because it had, Wolverine. And it was actually the exact same cast of characters on that cover that was in this show, minus Colossus. But it was Gambit, Rogue, Beast, Jean Grey, Cyclops, Wolverine. Yeah, it didn't have Jubilee on the cover. But they were attacking Magneto. And the art style on Batman the Animated Series was very Art Deco, 1940s, Max Fleischer. This one was very comic books. It was an animated comic book on the screen. And the writers totally understood the stories that Chris Claremont had done from the 70s onward and did a fantastic job of adapting them to the screen. It was fun and action-packed, but they also had mature storylines, especially storylines dealing with bigotry and prejudice.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking about that, though, I think rewatching it now, the artistic style actually ends up hindering X-Men a little bit, where I think it helps the Batman animated series.
Yes.
Having that deco look really makes it rewatchable, and it makes it stand the test of time with Batman, where having it just be like a product of the time of the 90s with X-Men, it looks so 90s that it doesn't look as cool to me. The look and the art direction of X-Men isn't nearly as strong as Batman was.
Yeah, I remember, I really liked the X-Men cartoon when I was younger, but just watching it again as an adult, I was like, holy shit, I thought this was good animation.
No, the animation was really, really slow and poor and like low frame ratey.
Yeah, it was really bad.
Well, they had kind of some issues with some of the animation studios that they worked with. The very first season, they sent out to, I forget the name of the company, but it was a company in Korea who did the animation. It came back with so many mistakes, but the animation company refused to fix them. So the very first time it aired, it had so many animation mistakes that it didn't get fixed until later. They went back and redid them later, so they fixed some of the stuff. But they had a lot of problems. Pretty much everything after season 2 was aired out of sequence from the way it was written. There were some episodes that were shown a season or two later from when they were written because they had so many problems kind of with animation showing up late or wrong. I believe the second episode showed up the day before it was supposed to air with several problems, and that was before they had even had time to add the vocals and music and the special effects. So they had to postpone it for another week, and they were kind of ripe with animation problems. And to me, the animation style is never been what I've loved about the series. It's been the characters and the story and the writing. Obviously, with better animation, the series, I think, would be the best superhero animated series ever.
Well, that's sort of like the whole clash between DC and Marvel in general. Like DC is, their things are better made, but Marvel always has, more attractive, better characters.
What are you laughing about, Adam?
I'm just laughing. Jonathan has the gall to say that they're better made.
They're better made.
His opinions do not reflect the opinions of Blast from Our Past podcast.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Fucking Alan Moore, and you don't get better than that. I'm sorry.
I mean, they had some great stories, but I wouldn't say, yeah, never mind. Fuck it. The animation had some issues. There were also some really strong voice actors. They weren't as big of names, and they don't have like the lasting power that like the Batman animated series had. But like when I think of a lot of those voices, like when I see a Storm in my head, I still kind of hear that Storm with that really cheesy, weird, the weird cadence that she had, and she would always say these weird fucking things like,
Storm, mistress of the elements, commands you to release that child. Nature, I command you, bring forth thunder and lightning. I summon the cold of the Arctic winds. Hail, fill the skies with rocks of ice.
But like, I really connected to the voices in that show.
I'm gonna admit that like when I was watching the show and I was younger, I didn't have a full grasp of what a mutant was. So I always thought that like Storm was some kind of like wizard. I didn't understand that, like these mutants were sort of like our evolutionary betters. They're Homo sapien superior. I thought they were just people who happened to have powers for kind of no reason. I know people didn't like them, but I didn't think it was because of their genetics.
Storm does talk like a wizard, that's for sure.
Yeah, so when she said things like that, I was like, oh, that's just her thing. She's casting spells.
She talks almost like Doctor Strange. She really does.
Yeah, she does.
Which is just kind of weird.
So speaking of the cast, it's kind of maybe a who's who of people you've never heard of and haven't heard of since. Apparently, the very first time they cast this, they used probably more typical voice actors, probably ones we've heard of. The director hated it, fired all of them, and completely recast it. And so what they did is they went up to the Toronto stage scene and cast a bunch of people from there. Most of this cast is Shakespearean stage actors.
That makes sense for Beast. Beast is totally a Shakespearean stage actor.
Mm-hmm.
So, you had a guy named Cedric Smith who did Professor X, Cathal Dodd who did Wolverine, Norman Spencer did Cyclops, Lenore Zahn did Rogue, who I thought did a very good sort of raspy southern accent.
Love the Rogue, yeah.
Catherine Disher did Jean Grey. Guy named Chris Potter did Gambit. Allison Court did Jubilee. She's the only one who's probably been in something else animated. If you saw the animated Beetlejuice cartoon, she was Lydia, which I was a fan of, so I don't know if either of you guys watched. That might have been before your time.
Yeah, I watched it.
No, that was great.
I used to watch it.
I liked it.
Allison Seeley Smith did Storm, and then this guy named George Buza who did Beast. He also had a small part in the first X-Men movie. He just played a trucker. I can't remember which trucker.
He's the guy who said this is Laughlin City when he dropped Rogue off at the bar.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's all people that weren't really voice actors to begin with. They all went on to do other things with Marvel and DC in various stages, but they really kind of started with this because he just went up and kind of pilfered the Toronto stage scene in order to get it, which kind of gave some clout to the stories because they were, despite the bright animation, they were trying to tell some serious stories with this.
A lot of the stories go into 3 episodes, or the Phoenix Saga has a 5-episode parter, and I like that because you can get very invested in the stories more with this show than you can with some others.
Yeah, and the dialogue at times could be a little bit cheesy. It could be a little bit 90s as well.
Yeah.
I think when it came to the point of hammering home the whole themes of prejudice and everything, I think it did a great job. Some of it felt very relevant to our times, I thought, with the whole, people protesting these people who are different.
Just kind of like dissecting some of the writing. You mentioned just some of the dialogue in general. There's some cheesy, they over-explain some stuff. I know it's a kid's show, but, it did have some poor writing that in rewatching it now, it's just like, okay, this could have been a little bit better, but I get it. For a product of its time, I'll let that slide.
Yeah, I mean, it appealed to me as a 90s kid. Like when Cyclops would say something like, not, I'd laugh my ass off and I'd be like, this show, Jonathan, you're cool. Not, things like that.
I loved this series more than the Batman series, but I never truly got into the Batman series the way Adam did.
I mean, I love both of them, and I own these on DVDs. I don't own the Batman one. But rewatching them, and also even before rewatching them, I definitely recognize and I do feel that the Batman animated series is the better show of the two, and it has better staying power, personally. Even though I'm more connected with the Marvel characters, it's just, I always drew myself closer to the Batman animated show.
I would agree with that. I think, especially when you see what happened to the X-Men series down the line, I don't know if you guys watched any episodes from the 4th season or the 5th.
No.
Those are really hard to watch. The animation is like 10 frames per scene, and they just cycle between these 10 frames. It's bizarre. It's just not well done. And the storylines suck too. They don't compare to the initial ones as well. I don't know if they got different writers, but it's not good. It didn't hold up at the end.
Yeah.
One thing before we end on X-Men, I really want to add, I think this show did a great job of, you got a lot of extra, like, ancillary characters. Like, it introduced a lot of extra people that I may not have known about early on, but, like, you know, you get introduced to Juggernaut or Archangel or Omega Flight and Morph and all this other stuff. This show, probably more than the Batman show, got me more hyped into wanting to read comics because it pulled in a lot of different characters. Bishop and Cable and Nightcrawler, all like Colossus, all came in at different parts to do parts of different stories that made me want to read more comics than, say, the Batman did, because there were so many different characters that came in for these different storylines, and they were just cool characters, and they just kept pulling in these new cool mutants that I think actually this one for sure made me a bigger comic fan than the Batman show did.
I think it's definitely easy to like sort of do world building when you have like a team book. Batman has always, I mean, there's the Bat family, but Batman has always kind of been a lone kind of character. You know, I think he prefers to work alone. But when you have a team book and you could introduce, you know, have all these other characters interacting with other characters, yeah, you could definitely do some good world building with that. John, I'm curious. You said you weren't a fan of the Batman animated series, but you were a fan of this one. What do you think of the character of Batman in general?
I think he's fine. I mean, no. I think he's fine. I really loved the Tim Burton Batman one, and from that I got into a couple of graphic novels from Batman, but beyond that, I mean, I don't go out of my way to. I like him better than Superman, I'll tell you that. I think he's a much more dynamic character than Superman.
I was just curious. I ran into quite a few people, surprisingly, who were like, oh, Batman? Oh, he's just rich. Oh, he's dumb. And I was like, what about Tony Stark?
Personally, I think that Batman's a real piece of shit.
I think you're a piece of shit.
Well, yeah, the show is solid, though. The X-Men show, I am curious. Yeah, I didn't watch any of those later episodes, but, you know, the ones that I did watch, I liked. I didn't like them as much as the Batman animated series show, but just the comic nerd in me and the nostalgia factor of how much I love these characters, and X-Men is still probably like my group team. If I have to connect with one group team that I'm going to read their storyline, it's going to be X-Men first. So I just have to say, yeah, this show was enjoyable. I definitely see how dated it is with some of the animation and just some of the writing, but in general, it's a cool ass show.
Yeah, I think what it lacks in animation and dialogue and everything like that, it makes up for in the cool factor for sure.
All right, so why don't we go ahead and move on to our X-Men casting, which is going to be unique in that it's a recasting of X-Men into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, this is going to be cool.
We pretty much went with the main ones from the animated series, so Professor X, Wolverine, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Jubilee, Rogue, Storm, Gambit, and Beast. This is probably, with both of these castings together, this is our biggest casting in one episode ever, and probably will ever be.
Yeah.
I kind of want to work backwards from kind of in the way I just said. So let's start with Beast. And I would actually like to hear y'all's pick first.
So for Beast, we wanted someone who, above all, would be able to recite dialogue intelligently. So we wanted a very intelligent seeming actor. We assumed that this was going to be like mocap kind of work. We don't think, I mean, Kelsey Grammer looked great in the prosthetics, I think, for the X-Men 3 movie, but I think I'd like to see my Beast a little bit bigger and be able to perform more acrobatic feats and not make it look like he's doing wire work, you know? So I'm assuming mocap for this. So he's not necessarily a big guy himself, but he is very intelligent.
Or it comes across that way.
He's in the James Bond franchise right now as Q. His name is Ben Winshaw, and that's who we chose for Beast.
Okay. We also considered the mocap thing, and that's kind of what influenced our decision. We wanted somebody who had a really solid voice, because any actor can sound intelligent if they read their lines right. So we actually did a double thing.
Yeah, we copped out a little bit.
We decided that we wanted a guy named Terry Notary to do the mocap because he's a fantastic stunt guy, stunt coordinator, and he's probably just as big of a mocap guy as Andy Serkis is. He's just not as well known because he's not typically doing a lot of the lines.
Terry Notary recently he was Kong in Kong Skull Island, so he's good at kind of beast movements, and so he did the motion capture for Kong, so that's what we went with him for the motion capture side.
Okay, yeah, he'd be great.
And he was also kind of the coordinator on most of the Planet of the Apes movies that have come out. But for the voice and possibly the face, we decided we wanted Liev Schreiber to be Beast.
Sabretooth?
Yes.
We know we are recasting someone from the Fox side, but Liev Schreiber's the voice of HBO Sports. He has a fantastic, like, Shakespearean sound to him, and just like the way all of his acting, you can get that from. Yeah, we merged the two. We made two people one character.
I think, yeah, Liev Schreiber's voice fits Beast to a T. I think that's a really good choice.
Yeah, it's an older choice than our choice for sure. But
yes.
I mean, especially if it's mocap, if he doesn't have to do the work and just provide the voice, he would play convincing Dr. Hank McCoy for sure.
For our movie, we don't want any fucking Hank McCoy. I don't want to see Beast in human form at all. Like the Nicholas Hoult version that they do in X-Men First Class and whatnot.
Yes.
I hate that. Like he should be blue.
Right?
He should be a blue animal thing all the time.
He's not the fucking Hulk where he
Yes.
gets angry and then turns into Beast.
Right.
He's always Beast.
The recent X-Men movies have copped out so much about like, oh, we're going to try and save money and we're not going to have Mystique in her blue makeup very much.
Right.
And we're not going to have Beast in his blue shit. Like that just pisses me off because like those characters should be that.
The whole thing with like, oh, Professor X can walk again. They're all cured of whatever is wrong with them. They just can't use their powers. So dumb.
Yes, it was dumb.
Yeah.
That's why they need to go back to Marvel Studios.
Agreed. All right, so let's go on to our Ragin' Cajun, Gambit. And Adam, why don't you go ahead and tell them what our pick was for this?
So we wanted an actor who I think has a lot of cool factor to him. Gambit has got to be smooth. He's got to be good with the ladies. He's got to particularly be good with Rogue. I want that aspect back, that relationship back in this version. So yeah, we went with an actor who is super cool, and he's best known for his character from Sons of Anarchy, and that is Charlie Hunnam.
Yeah, he was in Pacific Rim, right?
Yes.
That's a good choice. I think he definitely has get the suave angle down, and he's certainly a physical presence. So I could see that. On our end, I went with somebody a little bit leaner. When I think of Gambit, I think of someone who's a little bit leaner, maybe not so stocky. But he definitely has to have the cool factor. For this particular actor, he definitely has that cool factor. There's a lot in the eyes that are kind of like smoldering, like you could totally see him pulling it off with the ladies. So I went with an actor named Ian Somerhalder. He is in the Vampire Diaries, and he was in the show Lost. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of him.
Never watched Lost, and I certainly didn't watch Vampire Diaries, but he has a look that would work for sure.
Yeah, it's all in the eyes. He has like this piercing gaze, and Gambit has these red piercing eyes, so I think he could pull it off well.
Okay.
I think he could do the accent well too, because he has a Cajun ancestry. So that was our pick.
Oh, all right. So now to our Queen of the Skies, Storm. So I'm going to go ahead and go with our pick. Someone who's... I'm not even going to say anything about her because I just think she's awesome. We went with Sonequa Martin Green,
who plays Sasha in The Walking Dead.
She's now on the new Star Trek Discovery series.
Oh yeah, she'd be a great choice. I like that choice. I like that one just as much as I like mine. We went with, I don't know if you guys ever watched Sleepy Hollow, the TV show that was on Fox that just got canceled.
No.
She also played Jackie Robinson's wife in the movie 42, Chadwick Boseman's wife. She's like a young Kerry Washington. Well, Kerry Washington is young, but she's like a younger Kerry Washington. Her name is Nicole Bahari.
She was on my short list.
Oh, really? Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think she'd be great too. But I like both of those options. I'd go either way.
You guys are so much friendlier on this one than we were on the Batman one. Who's winning? I don't know.
Everyone wins. Everyone wins when we discuss this.
Yes.
All right.
So let's go to Rogue, and I'd like to hear your choice first for Rogue.
Okay, we went with an actress who we think is kind of a rising star currently at the moment. She was in True Detective. She was in San Andreas. Her name is Alexandra Daddario. We think she has the right kind of... I mean, first of all, she's gorgeous, but we also think she can pull off that like flirty, fun aspect of the character.
She has just like these intense eyes. I think she would pair well with Ian Somerhalder. But like she's definitely like someone like you're like afraid to touch. I don't know if it's just her gaze, but I think she could pull off both, like, you know, the southern kind of belle kind of beauty that is Rogue, and then some.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, there had to be at least one in each. We also went with Alexandra Daddario.
Yeah.
Yes!
For Rogue.
Yes, we did.
No way!
She's done some action stuff in like Baywatch and Percy Jackson, but she would bring back the sultriness of Rogue
Yes.
that we've missed.
Heck yes, she would.
Same kind of reason I thought her and our pick for Gambit Charlie Hunnam would also pair well together and they would have a good dynamic. But yeah, Alexandra Daddario was a pretty easy choice for both of us.
Yeah, she has the hair too.
Yeah.
And she would look pretty nice with that white streak, I think.
Yep.
Good choice, guys. Good choice.
She looks good in anything.
Yeah, she does.
Or nothing.
Someone saw True Detective.
Oh, I have not, but I will now.
Oh yeah.
Oh, dude, you need to watch True Detective.
Not just for the nakedness, but also because of the good story. But
Okay.
That's just
All
a
right.
bonus. That's just a bonus.
Okay.
that's the cherry on top.
All right, so let's move on to our youngest member, Jubilee. And I'll kind of start us off. This, I think, was one of the only ones where Adam and I kind of agreed right off the bat. It wasn't Adam's first choice, but it was on his short list. So it was one we went with. And so for Jubilee, we went with Kimiko Glenn, who is on Orange is the New Black.
With Jubilee from the series is kind of naive and young and just kind of learning, and Kimiko Glenn, I think, is kind of similar actress in Orange is the New Black with that same style that I think she would bring a lot of those aspects to that character.
Oh, I've seen Orange is the New Black. Yeah, she would be fantastic. Yeah, she's pretty young too. Yeah, good choice on that one. We went with an actress by the name of Ellen Wong, who has some nerd cred because she was in the Scott Pilgrim movie.
Yeah, she was the one with blue hair.
Yeah, she's awesome in that. Yeah, Ellen Wong, she's gorgeous, by the way. Yeah, I think she's a great call.
Yeah, good choices all around. Good choices.
Both of them good choices.
Dang it, you guys, come on.
I love you guys. I love you guys.
All right, so let's move on to Jean Grey. Adam, why don't you go ahead and give him our pick for this one?
We went with somebody who is a much lesser known actress, so we didn't go big for our Jean Grey. We went with someone who really encapsulates the look for our Jean Grey. She actually kind of has a Famke Janssen's look to her, funny enough, but I think she actually would pair really, really well with the person that we cast as Cyclops. Her name is Amanda Rigetti, and she's best known from the show The Mentalist, but if you look her up, she also had a very small bit part as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent from Captain America, First Avenger, but her look is so perfectly Jean Grey to me that I think she would really work well.
She was the actress that was in the fake, when they woke Captain America up, and she was in that little fake room, hospital room that they woke him up in. That's who she was.
Okay.
She's good. I think
Okay.
she has like strong features. I think for our pick we went with someone who is a little bit more vulnerable looking. We wanted Jean Grey to be vulnerable but also have a strength about her, and we thought someone that encapsulated both of those aspects pretty well was Blake Lively.
Okay.
And also she reminds me so much of the Jean Grey character from the X-Men Evolution cartoon in particular.
Yeah. And yeah, she looks pretty good as a redhead.
And plus it'll be cool to have Blake Lively in the X-Men universe with her husband.
Yeah, I think that's okay. I didn't want a vulnerable Jean Grey. I want my Jean Grey to be a strong, powerful presence because she's got to have two men fight over her. And being vulnerable, Jean Grey is the most powerful of all of them. And so the only time that she becomes vulnerable is when the Phoenix Force takes her over. And so having someone like Blake Lively who can show that vulnerability too much already, I don't love your pick, just like you don't love my pick.
Jean Grey, she is one of the most powerful, maybe overpowered Marvel characters.
Yep.
So she's often put into situations in which they need to kind of nullify her. So you see her getting wiped out of the picture a lot. And even in the cartoon, she's always doing that, like, that orgasm cry and then fainting, And then, I don't know if you guys saw the Honest trailers about the X-Men cartoon.
No, I will have to check that out.
He was like, oh, this is turning me on. How much her moaning kind of it was so pervasive in the show.
Wow.
So that's where we went with the vulnerable side. But I also think that Blake Lively is a great, strong actress. So she could kick ass too.
Okay.
All right, let's go to her eventual significant other, Cyclops. And why don't you give us your pick first?
Cyclops, I've always been a strong supporter of his. I feel like the character doesn't get his due. He's often called bland, which I think he is, but I also think that there's a deepness to him. So we wanted an actor that on the outset was sort of bland, but could also portray a deeper character.
And just like, be a convincing leader.
Yes, that's true.
Someone who sort of had that commanding kind of presence. Someone you would listen to if he was giving out orders.
So we went with Armie Hammer. He was the Lone Ranger.
He was also the Winklevoss twins.
Yeah, in The Social Network. So yeah, we just like his look, and we think he captures all of those personality traits.
We also went with Armie Hammer for Cyclops.
Yeah!
Armie Hammer, he looks perfect like the Cyclops from the X-Men cartoon. Like, he has that good look about him for all the reasons you already explained. Yeah, we think Armie Hammer's a good call.
He has the hair.
Yeah, he definitely has the hair. The way that I kind of see this, like, I want them to look into the cool outfits that like the actual comic outfits.
Yes.
And Armie Hammer could pull off Cyclops's.
The Jim Lee suits.
Yeah, exactly, the Jim Lee suits. Armie Hammer could look really good in that blue Cyclops suit.
Yes, instead of the stupid leather fetish costume.
Oh God, no, yeah, exactly.
He may be a Green Lantern.
Oh, I could see that too, though.
That's the rumor.
I could totally see him as Green Lantern.
So we're down to our last two. This one, Adam and I had a hard time deciding on, and I think at the end we still weren't really convinced about our pick. And so we're going to do Wolverine.
This is a hard one.
I had the biggest list for this one. I just kept naming names, and I wasn't happy with any of them.
Yeah. So we ended up going with Tom Hardy as our Wolverine.
Yeah.
He can do kind of the...
He's obviously intense. He's not too tall. He's 5'8". Armie Hammer is 6'5". So I think the comparison between the two of them would really first off, John and I really wanted like a super short person. And like we really wanted to bring the X-Men the Wolverine from the comics onto screen. And so I was looking up short actors and none of them really fit.
Yeah.
And then so Tom Hardy definitely fits the intensity and the gruffness. I think he could play that. And so knowing that he's not super tall at 5'8", I think would work pretty well. So
that's a great choice.
I had to convince Joseph not to go with a really short actor, even though he really wanted to, just because I kind of felt like the names that were coming up who were actors who were short, I didn't really find them convincing enough.
Tom Hardy would be the exception to that.
I do like our choice. But technically he's already in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, because he's in Venom.
Could have sworn I heard that they were not even putting that into the universe.
They
but
are.
then did it come back that it is going to be in the universe? Okay.
It's loosely in there, yeah.
Okay, loosely.
Okay.
It's a different Earth than 616, let's say that.
We weren't going to go short. We wanted somebody who looked the part. And the character of Wolverine, like if we're talking in history, there are two actors who could have played him perfectly. One of them is Jack Nicholson, back in the 70s. And the other one is Clint Eastwood.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Actually, the drawing of Logan, the initial drawing of Logan, was heavily inspired by Clint Eastwood. So we went with his son, Scott Eastwood, who is almost a dead ringer for a young Clint Eastwood. So we think he'd nail the look down pretty well. He's a little bit bland, but we think that, so was Hugh Jackman back when he started. So,
and he's actually expressed interest in the role. So we almost thought like this was cheating because he has said that he would love to be Wolverine.
And it was a name that I brought up to John as well at one point. Yeah, no, I think that's a good choice as well.
Yeah.
If we could somehow combine Scott Eastwood with your
Tom
pick,
Hardy?
Tom Hardy,
Yeah.
it would be perfect. That's the actor I want.
All right. Our mentor, Professor X. Adam was adamant that it not be someone British.
I love Patrick Stewart, but I finally wanted like a Professor X who's from like New York, someone from America, because like he grew up, like it was his family's mansion that becomes the school. So I didn't want another British Professor X. Like I wanted an American.
That's racist. Just kidding.
What?
Those damn Brits.
Uh-huh.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, the guy who plays Professor X on the animated system, Cedric Smith, is also British. He was just doing an American accent. Yes.
Huh.
Yeah, it was kind of like a New England kind of accent.
Yeah, and that's what it should be.
So for us, Professor X also had to kind of have the look, be able to, have that bold look and still have a sort of strong presence. So we went with an actor named Calm Fiore.
Oh, I know him.
To me, it was his performance in the Chronicles of Riddick that kind of sold me on it as kind of a strong guy.
Yeah, he is actually already in the MCU as King Laufey from Thor, from the Thor movie.
Yeah, but you wouldn't know it was him.
He was. You would never know. He was chock full of prosthetics and makeup. But he's definitely got the look, and I think he's a strong enough actor that he could pull it off.
He would be fantastic, honestly. I think he really has the look. So good choice there. I'm surprised. I regret that I didn't think of that. But we went with someone that was British. So I'm sorry, Adam, but we believe
That's okay.
We believe people of all nationalities could play this role. We went with Ray Fiennes.
Amazing actor.
So yeah, we thought of him for reasons that probably don't need to be said. He has amazing presence. He reminds me kind of like a young Patrick Stewart, trained classical actor, delivery and everything. And I mean, it's not a wildly exciting choice because it doesn't differ all that greatly from what's already been, but I thought he'd do well nevertheless. I do like your pick more, I'd have to say.
You don't admit that. What are you doing?
Some good picks all around.
We thought a lot more on this along the same lines for this one than I think we did with Birds of Prey. Good choices, I think, mostly overall.
Yeah, I mean, we ended up with two of the same castings. You know, our Cyclops and our Rogue were both the same, so that's pretty cool.
It just really makes me want to see this movie now.
Yeah. I wish Fox would just give up control and stop making the shitty X-Men movies that they're doing now and give it back to the hands where it belongs.
I wouldn't call them shitty. I still enjoyed them.
Did you see Age of Apocalypse? It was shitty.
It was bland. It wasn't shit.
I mean, I also saw First Class and Days of Future Past. I didn't hate those.
Yeah.
And honestly, I liked Deadpool, and I'm really curious about New Mutants after seeing that trailer.
Yeah, agreed.
I'll be honest, I wasn't all that excited. It just looks like a horror movie to me, and I have no interest in it.
This is a different take, though, but that's kind of fun. You know, do you have to have the exact same style every time?
I think it'll keep the genre alive.
We'll be talking about this in our next episode of our podcast, but I do think that, to give you a little tease, I was not happy with the trailer.
Really?
You heard it here first. Actually, your podcast is going to come out first, so never.
Oh, that's right. Never mind. I think it looks too much like a generic horror movie. When I heard that they were going to go down the route of the horror genre, that it was going to be a little bit more unique. He just looks like he's trying to copy all of these generic horror films that have come out before.
I'd agree.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure having you. It was a pleasure shitting on Jonathan and DC the entire time.
Yay!
We really appreciate you guys spending the time with us.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really like the casting segment and
Sort of.
Please join us next time where we review the Arnold Schwarzenegger, Brigitte Nielsen 1985 classic Red Sonja, also recast Red Sonja, and go over the 90s show Walker, Texas Ranger.
If you have any questions or any suggestions for movies or TV shows you'd like for us to review as part of your childhood, you can reach us at blastfromourpast@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook and Twitter at BlastPastCast. That's at BlastPastCast on both Facebook and Twitter. So until next time, I'm John.
And I'm Adam.
And thanks for joining us. See you next time.